Yep, we got three. What's going on, guys? Figured I'd give y'all a little time with my buddy Matt here. We were just sitting, talking, going over some stuff, and recording a few things, and thought we'd go live and see if y'all had any thoughts or questions or comments or whatnot, just for a little while. And I'm looking down just because I have to be able to see the questions on the phone because I can't see them on there. So y'all hit the chat up and say hi if you got a topic or question you would like further pontification upon.
I just want to know, we're actually the same height,
Yeah,
but what he did was he gave me the low chair today.
well, I mean, I got to make him down lower than me, you know, make
And,
me
and I'm
look
further back too.
Yeah, and here I can.
No, it's
Here, we'll make, and I can scrunch down. Yeah, we're about the same height, so. Let's see. If y'all are rolling any messages, I don't see them yet. Oh, no, there's your first comment. Beans and nachos. Beans and nachos would be good about now. Unfortunately, I don't have any. So, can y'all hear us okay? I need to adjust the microphone or anything. Somebody comment if you can. Or if you don't comment, I suppose that's probably a clue you might not be able to hear us. Yeah, Drandle, I don't know why the notifications are so slow going out. Sound is good. All right, that's what I need to hear. Yeah, we tried this a little while ago and it wouldn't even send out the notification. Frank, you made it. It's kind of impromptu. Frank BAOD, that's a buddy of mine up north of here. I won't say where he's at, but he's north of here. Frank's a good dude. He's got good stuff on his channel too. He does some good talks. Let's see. Sound is good. Okay. Ah, Pennsylvania. Okay, so he said it, so I can say it. Yes, Frank is up in Pennsylvania. He's a Yankee. So what's on y'all's minds today? Matt and I were just kind of going over stuff that we usually go over when we get together and chat, and did another video earlier, and y'all see that later this week once I get it edited and uploaded. So anybody got anything in particular on their minds today? We were just killing a few minutes, so I need to get so I can like have my comments up there. I can see them. The problem is they get so far away and I ain't got my reading glasses on. I can't see them out there no more.
Yeah.
My reading glasses are on the other side of the room. You got yours handy, but
I already look old enough. I don't need to put glasses on.
right. That here, see that'd be the. Yours are even nicer than mine. I got freaking goober glasses for mine when I have to read. So I'm, yeah. What you say down there?
I'd rather see myself.
Why you think I keep them off camera? Zombie, what's going on?
That's why God put optics on rifles.
Yes. All right, Frank, hurry up and get home so you can interact with the rest of the class. Frank says he's on the road and will be home in a little bit, then he can interact.
What's the time delay there?
It's 30, 40 seconds.
There we go. No,
So,
just a
yeah,
couple.
not too long.
Just a couple.
Zombie, what's going on out your way? Zombie Farmer's got a real good channel. He's, I believe, up in Tennessee. He does some really good. I think you'd probably like watching some of his stuff, some of his info that he's got. So, for those of you, in case y'all don't know, this is Matt Bracken. He's the author of Enemies, Foreign and Domestic.
A couple books.
Red Cliffs of Zerhoon.
Just
Castigo
enemiesforeignanddomestic.com has it all, or
Yeah,
Amazon.
go to enemiesforeigndomestic.com or Amazon and search for Enemies, Foreign and Domestic. Highly recommend the book series, and yes, it's a shameful plug. Shameless plug, I should say. Bush hogging and hauling cows, cleaning barns. Yep, that sounds about appropriate. Zombie's got a big farm that it's a working farm. He also
Big enough to shoot on?
You could probably shoot on your property, couldn't you, Zombie? while waiting on him to answer it. Smith and Wesson 642 says, hello, Matt Bracken.
Hello. Never did this before, so if I
Yeah,
feel uncomfortable.
this is Matt's first live deal with. No, it's not. You're live on.
But I'm not
InfoWars
interacting with
and-
people. I'm just
You take phone calls.
one at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can just dump them too.
Zombie says, yeah, he did a shooting video. Okay, cool. He's got cows, and every time I watch zombie stuff, I think about us getting the cows that cousin's planning on getting, so we'll always have beef on
Hey,
here.
Zombie, while we're chatting, can you please put out the latitude and longitude of your farm so we'll know where to aim all of our bug out RVs? Okay.
There is that.
We'll only share it with our closest dozen or two friends,
Right?
and of course the internet.
Yeah. Only the people watching on this part of the internet, though, not the other parts of the
Right.
internet.
That's right.
Because, you know,
There must be RV parking for what, 500, 600 rigs there,
easy.
and food and water and pigs, cows.
Zombie says, no problem, come on. Cows do not like gunfire. Most of them don't. If they get accustomed to it, it don't bother them too much. But yeah, in general, they don't. You know, we're planning on getting some up at.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, I'll probably be going next Saturday. We've already got all the fence posts in. We just got to run the barbed wire and get that all strung up. And he's ready to roll on it. So,
Old Bessie.
well, it's like you said, like Nathan said. Why not be able to have steak and eggs if it all goes bad? I mean,
That's
he's got
right.
all the chickens, so we got plenty of eggs. We got plenty of chicken, but
No more pigs, though, right? They had pigs.
had pigs. We ate all the pigs.
They were just too much of a pain, or
Pigs were too much of a pain because they would get out during the day. Pigs are notorious for breaking through the fence and finding ways. They're stupid smart.
they'll dig.
Get out. And he said by the time, just in a couple of hours between him coming home at lunch and then coming home at the end of the day, even with Aunt and Uncle there, they would like destroy the yard. Just root it all to pieces. So, and it just took too much time. He said cows are far easier in that regard, maintaining them. And
Cows don't dig under fences.
no, typically not. So, let's see. Now, Florida's not underwater yet. We're close, but we ain't under yet.
But you can dig down a short distance and get drinking water.
Yeah, yeah. You ain't got to dig too deep with the shovel. It might be a little mucky, but it's drinkable. Take a couple of rags or a pair of jeans and filter it and boil it. And
It's one thing I always we usually remark about. A lot of preppers have got 10 times more guns than they'll ever use, but they're on city water. What are they going to do when that stops?
yep, even having a shallow well put in your backyard that you can just use a hand pump to pump with, or even now the little solar pumps.
That's right.
As long as you got water, you got 50% of the equation right there.
Even if it's nasty water, you can purify it, but you got to have water.
As long as you got water, you can purify. You're good.
What's the
The one that I like is all the guys that, and I'm a proponent of it. I like it, but they stock tons of freeze dried food, and then never think about how they're going to get enough water to reconstitute all that freeze dried food, because they're, like you said, they'll be on city water or something, and there's no well, no creek nearby, no nothing.
Yeah, it's a wing and a prayer. What's the saying? You can go 3 weeks without food, 3 days without water, and 3 minutes without air.
Something like that.
But 3 days without water, think about it. You're not going to be able to do much with your ammunition if in 4 days you're on your back dehydrated.
Nope. Didn't do nothing. Says you got 2 wells and a river. You got it pretty
Yeah.
well covered then.
And one of the I haven't seen anything much about Venezuela lately, but when the power goes out, people are lined up at rivers with buckets. So typhoid and cholera is spreading all over the place.
Yep.
At the same time, when there's no functioning hospitals, no medicine, so you can see how fast things can spiral out of control. You pull the plug on the electricity, the water isn't far behind.
They're washing all their dirty clothes in the same river they're getting the water out of, all at the same time. And speaking of electricity, I was going to mention this to you, and we didn't get a chance to talk about this yet. Hang on a second here. Zombie says, when you get a chance, check out my video. Are you prepared for the shooting video? Y'all be safe. Check back in if you're still on live, and I'll be uploading live. All right, cool, Zombie. I'll look forward to checking out your stuff later, and I'm gonna make sure Matt's got your link to your
Subscribe now.
your channel. Yeah. So, a couple of days ago, up around Fort Bragg, they flipped the power off without telling anybody. Do you see the article
No.
about that?
Mm-mm.
I'll send you the link to the article because me and the guys were discussing this, and our theory is because they partly admitted it, they wanted to see the effects of a large-scale power outage on an urban area without any warning. And there were legit people around Fort Bragg that were like, what the frick is going on? And our theory is because of the way it was done was very similar to how the power went out in Venezuela. And if you think back here just a couple weeks ago when the president signed that big executive order on the EMP power grid deal that he did,
Right.
looking into that, it almost makes you think, maybe not necessarily by EMP, but by some form or fashion, that somebody's really worried about the power going out on a large scale. Now,
They should be.
it's pretty much a given that the power grid in Venezuela was hacked and shut down. The big question is,
but if you have socialists in charge of it, they're not going to do any maintenance. They put all their cousins and
right?
brother-in-laws.
They make it easy to do. The question is who shut it down, but that's irrelevant. The point is it can be done if it was done on a large scale here, as integrated as we're almost as bad as that because of how integrated and interdependent our electrical grid is. You could knock it out, relatively speaking, easy with the right.
a half dozen Metcalfs at the same time.
Right. I mean, so yeah, we just found that the timing of that event up around, and the fact that it was around Fort Bragg that they did it was just
Yeah, even
maybe
even,
coincidence, but curious.
even with electricity still on, an interesting example to study up on. I don't have any links off the top of my head, but this happened like I believe it was like in the 80s in Montreal, Canada, where the police union went on strike, and it made the news fairly early in the morning that it actually happened because people were saying for days, oh, they'll never go on strike. They won't actually go on strike. So they went on strike, and it made the news that a couple of taxi cab groups went to war with each other, and no police came. So as soon as it made the news in the morning that the taxi cab companies had gone to war because no police came, by afternoon, all the jewelry stores in Montreal were getting attacked because they knew no police are coming. So the police union had to call off the strike within 24 hours because it took less time than that for the violent criminals to just go completely.
It won't take long.
As soon as they knew there really aren't any police, they went to their first jewelry store and robbed the place immediately.
Look at how quickly and easily people will loot stores after a hurricane. I mean, I told you I've been in those kind of environments before and seen firsthand just how quickly and how deeply primal people will go when there's no threat of consequence in their minds. Like, they're not worried about getting arrested. They're not worried about going to jail. They're not worried about getting shot. They just go absolutely just primal. That's the only other way to put it.
Well, as somebody over the age of 40, I'm just glad that they have really nice, effective, rugged optics to throw on our rifles these days, because optics are what keep us old guys in the game.
That is some truth right there, because I'll tell you guys, back when I was a young buck private, back in the olden days, the doctor estimates that I had 28 vision in both eyes, maybe even better than that.
28?
28, 2010 to 28 in both eyes.
Wow.
That's why
Hawkeye.
that's where I got the nickname at. I used to could see things a really long way away and had no problem putting that iron front sight on it and just putting it there.
You can see it, you can hit it,
Exactly. I can't do that anymore.
because you can't see it.
No. And what's sad is my eyesight's still 20/20. Well, I got 20/15 in the left eye, 20/20 in the right eye, but it's got a fairly decent astigmatism. So I got 20/20 with the astigmatism. and being in my, mid 40s. And most people, 2015 and 2020, they're like, oh my God, I'd love to have that kind of vision.
I would.
But for me, from where it used to be to where it is now, is the equivalent of somebody having 2020 and going to like 2030. It still affects me just the same because my brain still remembers what it used to be like to be able to see stuff that far and that clear. I can't anymore, and it drives me nuts trying to shoot. So you guys will notice a lot of my videos talking about optics and putting optics on my gun because, as Matt said, it helps keep the older guys in the fight now. It helps counteract the aging eyesight thing.
Yeah, I especially like the scopes that have the braille. No,
Yeah, astigmatism is a pain in the rear, didn't do. So here's something that somebody Billy Bird just mentioned: coming food shortages. Now I've seen mixed thoughts on this and mixed reviews. I know actually Zombie Farmer's done a video on this, and I've seen some others. It depends on what you read as to what you get. But with all the flooding out in the Midwest, they say it's really wreaking havoc on our spring crops production and cattle and everything else, that by later this year there could either be noticeable shortages of food because of the production being down because of the flooding, or massive price increases because of it. Some people think that it'll really be there. Other people are saying that it's not as bad as it's being made out to be. The food will still be there, but they're going to use it as an opportunity to jack the prices up anyway, because they can use that as the excuse when there really won't be a shortage. I would say make all of that irrelevant. Make sure you got your own food and everything stored, and then if prices do get high, you got your own food to eat, and you ain't got to worry about buying it.
yeah, at least a couple months worth of prepared, freeze dried and canned food. If you have to go out and fight for food when everybody else is, it's a good chance that Papa ain't coming home.
Or if you can't pay for it, I mean, if prices on meat and vegetables up double or triple, and you physically can't budget to pay for it, that's going to be a lot of people that are struggling now just paycheck to paycheck. That could hit them really hard, regardless if there's an actual shortage of food or not. Just the prices going up could make it hard for them to
Yeah,
feed
and
themselves.
then there will be a social consequence because the normalcy bias means that what you've experienced, what people have experienced for most of their life, they think that it's just a God-given right, like breathing free air, and it could change in a heartbeat. We were talking earlier about a volcano goes off and we have a summer without a summer, where you have when Krakatoa happened, they had snow on the 4th of July in Washington D.C. They had the entire Chesapeake Bay frozen hard as a rock.
Think about
Imagine what that would do to agriculture globally.
Oh,
And immediately, the food
that
stops
could set
moving.
it back for years.
But our society, though, instead of being socially cohesive, religious, people would just go out of their minds because if they didn't have the food, they would just go crazy right away.
Think about that, guys. Take all the politics and all that even out of the equation. Something as simple and just natural as a volcanic eruption, just a massive volcano popping off, spewing up tons of crap into the atmosphere. It's happened in the past, we know this. Could totally change the atmosphere, the environment, and the weather. It could make it so you don't get enough. We could still get sunlight, but not enough for crops to actually grow. It could change the temperatures, totally change the crop growing seasons. You might see, temperatures drop across the globe by 20 degrees. Well, 20-degree temperature changes ain't gonna kill us. We're adaptable to that, but it can dramatically affect how food and crops and stuff grow. A simple volcanic explosion could totally change life on this earth as you know it. Just your happy Sunday thought, and it's nothing you can do anything about either.
Especially today when all of our food comes from hundreds or thousands of miles away and requires, an entire choreographed ballet of factories and processing plants, tractor
Right.
trailers, trains, all of that stops, the food stops.
All right, so two questions. I'm gonna get to one of them first. Our buddy Robert, you know Robert because you met him a few months ago at our little get together. Um, Robert says, "What's your view on hydroponic gardening?"
Well, I don't have any hydroponic gardening going on, that's for sure. I don't know. I have to ask the people down at Winn-Dixie and Publix because if I had to survive on what I can grow in the ground, I guarantee you I'm starving to death.
Fortunately, Nathan's really good at that. But we hydroponic.
I have the seeds. I have the seeds, but it would be a waste for me to put them in the ground.
Well, as long as you got them, you can find somebody that knows how to do it.
That's what I'll trade. I'll
The,
trade
the
them.
hydroponic gardening is something that's always been of interest to me. I've just never actually had the time to sit down and delve as deeply into it as I wanted to. So, switching to my buddy Frank wants to know. He's done a couple of videos on this, and he and I have actually texted back and forth some about it for a couple of weeks now. He and I both, and especially him, has had this really uneasy feeling, like in just the pit of your mind, pit of your gut, but can't put a finger on it. He's not sure why he's got this uneasy feeling. There's nothing specific that's triggered it or gone on. And Frank says, what are your thoughts on that? Have you been getting any uneasy, unexplained feelings about stuff?
I try not to because, you can psych yourself into just being a wreck, paralyzed wreck. At a certain point, you have to, trust in God and trust in your own self, and hopefully we've got a lot of more good years on this planet and more for our kids. But if you start worrying about the things that you can't even put a finger on, it's easy to just go into a worry spiral, and a worry spiral is not healthy for anybody. Get out, go for a bike ride, go for a run, go fishing,
Go
go
shooting.
hiking, go shooting, and enjoy every day like it's your last. But if you just get into a worry cycle, believe me, the world's going to throw enough curveballs at us without psyching ourselves up into. But yeah, I mean, every day when I flip on the TV and I see that they're still talking about the same stuff they were talking about last night, I say, thank you, God. We've got through another night, because one of these days we'll wake up and we're going to hear about 2 aircraft carriers on fire, or a volcano that just popped off, and how dark it is in some other part of the world all of a sudden.
Right.
So wait for it to unfold, because just worrying about the stuff we can't even put a finger on can just lead into a spiral that's unnecessary, a personal psychological spiral.
Frank's not the type to take it to that point. I think his bigger thing is, like me, is just more so than normal. It's kind of like that spider sense tingling in the back of your head.
I feel it.
It's almost like things are slowly ratcheting up, but not overly obvious kind of deal,
I know that the split's never been wider. I mean, I watched the Trump rally in Wisconsin last night, some of it, and on on CNN they were doing the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is, to me, a big progressive
That's a joke.
circle joke, and self-congratulatory virtue signaling convention. And these two worlds, the world that was inside or watching the Trump rally, and the world that was inside or watching the White House left-wing Correspondents' Dinner, we're not even in the same country anymore.
No,
It's as split as it was in 1860.
if not even more so.
If
now.
not more so, because even in 1860, the North and the South were basically both, Christians with essentially the same family values, and we don't share any of that anymore. So
Right.
I don't know what the Fort Sumter moment will be. Maybe it'll be a lot of little Fort Sumters, or maybe it'll be something we can't even anticipate. But I would just say, make sure should be covered on the guns and ammo by now. Take care of water. Take care of water. 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water. If you got 20 guns and you're still on city water and that's it, you got to reprioritize. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Tuba, yes. Right now, mainly just number 10 cans of coffee. At some point, I want to get into being able to store roasted beans. You can store them. Everything I've been told and educated on the subject, though, is don't store green coffee beans because they'll go rancid. Store roasted coffee beans and then do them the same way you would any of your other food storage, oxygen absorbers, Mylar bags, and an airtight 5-gallon bucket, and make sure you got a grinder on hand. Then you can grind them up and go from there. So that's your coffee question answered.
Then you can go into business selling it to all the people who don't have any coffee.
Oh, I think coffee would be almost as valuable a commodity as alcohol,
Absolutely.
easily. Back to Frank. Frank says that's the problem though. Fort Sumter is going to be a lot of little spots all over than rather one big one. Most likely, probably so. It's obviously possible there could be that one Fort Sumner moment, but I think yeah, you're probably right. It'll probably be a lot of smaller things, and unfortunately, that makes it more difficult because a lot of those smaller things might be harder for us to notice and pick up on our radar and match all those pieces up as being connected because you have one happen one day and then 2 weeks later there's another one and then 3 weeks later there's another one, and that gap tends to let us not connect everything, so to speak, whereas one big giant one is real obvious.
Yeah, it could be a series of escalations like the Steve Scalise shooting, then something else like Las Vegas, against a targeted audience, and just going back and forth with each side not willing to lay down arms, and just these loose cannons out there, the Dylan Roofs, the James Hodgkinsons, one after the other. Who knows? But
Oh, so Tuba just commented. He's the guy I was answering the coffee question to. He said he just moved here from communist Albania, and I always warn people that we are following the tracks of history that we went through. Yeah, if you just moved here from Albania, you could probably tell some stories and educate some people from over there. So
yeah,
welcome aboard.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I know for a fact, in certain situations, the world is binary. Those with guns and those without guns. And thank God in America, we are in the category of with guns.
Yeah.
Nobody's loading us into boxcars to the gulag. Not without a fight.
Yeah, Dindu, I think you're probably right. Waco was probably one of those starting points, but
Yes.
that was a test that I think we failed miserably on a lot of levels, and we could do a whole 2 hours of talking about that.
Ruby Ridge. I mean, the rules of engagement for Ruby Ridge. Shoot on sight outside the house. I mean,
Right.
really?
That was a start. Unfortunately, there's so many people nowadays who know nothing about those events and what happened and who was involved and how it all went down. It's kind of it's a tragedy and a shame, but they don't want people to know about that. They don't want. That's all been kind of swept under the rug. Pay no attention to this. That's just a bunch of wackos. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think that the Bundy Ranch could have kind of got close. Bundy Ranch was the temperature was turned way up, and you had two armed sides facing off. That could have turned into something way bigger than it was.
Yep. Tuba, not anymore communists now, but the communists just switched brands. They call themselves Democrats and Socialists, as there's any real difference between the two. Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Just camouflage.
It's the same thing under
That's right.
same goat under a different blanket.
Just rebranding for purposes of camouflage. That's it.
Yep. Does a space blanket really work for IR camo? I don't know. I've seen and heard mixed results, and I know some folks who've actually been involved with some stuff like that and similar to that. At this point, I would just say don't put your faith in it too heavily. If you're worried about someone coming after you that's got really good overhead FLIR capability, you got big issues to worry about.
Yeah, if
Overhead FLIR is going to be hard to.
If modern attack helicopters are out hunting for you,
you got issues.
you're in a bad way because they can shoot you from beyond where you can hear them.
Yep.
So don't worry about like, oh, here comes an attack helicopter like it's the movie Terminator, and I'm going to quickly jump into a tunnel. They shoot you from beyond where you even know there's a helicopter in your county. They see you and shoot you before you even know it.
Yep. Which again, if you guys watched any of my videos going back in the past, you've seen I still think that's fairly low down on the concern list. I put a much higher concern on the threats of just your average lawless gangbanging thuds and hoodlums, because they far outnumber people in the federal government. And if things ever get to that point, half the people in the federal government are going to be home worried about their own families.
More than half.
Yeah.
Fast.
So,
And a bigger danger due to the social breakdown and the type of people that we're allowing to mass invade our country, there are millions of people sharing our space that absolutely don't care if they die.
yep,
They don't care if they go to prison. They don't care if they die. They absolutely will roll the dice in any situation, including things that we would consider suicidal. That would, we tend to think, because we have a self-preservation instinct, we project that value on other people. But there are people walking around that just don't care.
yep.
And you can look at them the wrong way and they'll shank you or shoot you without really putting any thought into it. And
Yep.
that's in good times with electricity and water flowing. So just imagine
And
how
the
they're
threat
going
of law enforcement. Take
and-
away the water, take away the food, take away the electricity, take away police officers on the street. They'll go primal real fast and real far, and in far greater numbers than what. Again, I'm not saying that the feds or the government or whoever shouldn't be on your concern list. I just think it's way down at the bottom. People give way too much concern. You better be worried about the gang of thugs 10 miles away downtown that suddenly realize, you know what, there ain't no police to come after us. We can go do whatever we want to. We can go take whatever we want, kill whoever we want.
right. And we don't
Those
have
are
any we don't have any food, but we see that there's still lights on out in the suburbs.
Right. We know where there's people that's got food. So that's the ones that need to be on the top of your list when you can't call 911.
And just, you can't generalize from a city to a rural environment, but
They're everywhere.
an important point is that you can't defend a house. A family cannot defend a house. You do not have the manpower to put a guard around that house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If nothing else, eventually dad goes outside and he gets sniped from 100 yards away from behind the bushes. The only way you're going to protect a suburban neighborhood is if all the neighbors are in it together. Then you've got enough manpower to turn your suburban enclave into a gated community with a guard.
Yep.
So no matter what you think about your neighbors, you'd better get them on the same page one way or the other, because a single house is not a defensible point target. It's just not.
And on that same note, I was actually going to do a video about this at some point. So I've seen people make the comment before, trying to defend your house or whatever against those roving looters and gangs and such, that, oh, well, they'll just throw a Molotov over there and burn you out. I think some of you are failing to see the objective and the point here. People that are hungry and starving and wanting your stuff and are resorting to that level of being willing to kill you for it are not going to go around burning down your house, because then they burn everything inside that they want. They lose all the food, they lose all the water, they lose all the clothes. They're going to do what Matt said. They're going to wait until you go to sleep, sneak in and kill you, and wait till you go outside to have to do something and snipe you from down the street or whatever. They're going to want to kill you and preserve the stuff that they're after. They're going to preserve the food and stuff that they're after.
Unless it's a big enough gang that they're going Genghis Khan tactics and they're burning houses as examples.
Right.
And then with a loudspeaker they say, come out with your hands up or your house is next. And you've just seen 3 houses in a row go up in flames.
Yep.
So, that if it gets to the point where those are the kind of roving gangs that have got expendable foot soldier pawns out front, you're going to absolutely need to have your neighborhood already organized.
And the first house you see they try to stick a match to, you need to be stacking up cordwood with their bodies.
Exactly.
You better be dropping them real quick, preemptively, because at that point there won't be any question as to what's going on.
That's right.
Let's see what else we got going on here in the comments. Yeah, you're right, Frank. There's a lot of those people that would welcome that kind of stuff.
They're crazy and don't know what they're talking about or getting into.
Nope, I have no idea. Robert, you're right. I think you'll see a lot more siege mentality going on where they just wait people out because I think a lot of people probably, even if some of these people have got the food and water to stay buttoned up, but mentally they don't have it. If they knew somebody was camped out outside of them and had them under siege, I think mentally they would crack before they run out of food.
If the successful gang is repeating an operation that has worked before, so in their little convoy, they do have a month's worth of food.
Right.
They just need another neighborhood to loot.
Right.
So they're going to just sit outside of your gated community, with the
And
loudspeaker saying, "You guys ready to quit yet?
Yep.
We'll keep you alive." And remember, this formula allowed the Mongol horde to get all the way from China to Europe, which is send out an emissary and say, if you surrender and you pay tribute and you abide by our new rules, we won't murder you all. We'll just murder some of you and take your women.
Right.
But if you resist in any way, we're going to behead every single one of you. And they'll do it. And they're not kidding. Well, that's a successful formula that's scalable. So, you think it's a silly movie, but think Road Warrior, just lay siege, just wait outside. And eventually you have no choice but to surrender.
Yep.
But thank goodness for long-range scoped rifles, because we can make that a more interesting duel than when it was just swords and spears.
Yep. That's when you can do the reverse psychological warfare, and when the guy stands up with the in the back of the pickup truck screaming his message to everybody, and all of a sudden he gets a red dot on his forehead and drops over because half his skull's missing. That tends to be a little psychologically effective to the rest of his hordes, because if there's one thing those kind of people understand, it's raw violence. That's a universal trait around the world. Most everybody understands when you're sitting here talking and all of a sudden your buddy's missing half his head. That tends to get people's attention.
Well, and it's convenient to think that our side will have all the good precision shooters, and the other side will be guys that have only fired 5 rounds through an AK-47 and can't hit a mailbox 100 feet away. That's nice to think, but history teaches that that real craftsmen will be recruited by the bad guys. They would make cannons for the Turks. There were Europeans that made siege cannons for the Turks to attack Constantinople. The Turks didn't come up with the cannon, but they could hire Christian mercenaries that would sell out and make cannons for the Turks. So don't think that there won't be trained snipers working for the gangbangers.
We've already seen there's been documented MS-13 and another number of other entities that have sent people into the military just to get the training and experience to bring that back to their respective gangs and groups. So just because somebody's got a DD-214 doesn't necessarily make them on the up and up honorable person.
Sure.
Sadly, there's a lot of people with different moral values than ours.
Generally, liberals will pull this out as an example of some progressive, communist who has a good military record. And I like to remind them that Benedict Arnold, Adolf Hitler, and Timothy McVeigh were all legitimate war heroes. I mean, legit.
Yep.
They had legit credentials. And that did not mean they were good guys in the end.
All right, guys, I'm going to turn the air conditioner on. Tell me if this noise bothers y'all or drowns out the microphone, because
What?
it's getting a little warm in here, all this hot air we're throwing out.
Yeah.
And I want to sit here and sweat this. As long as that doesn't bother the volume, then I'm going to leave the air conditioner on, because, the South, I'd say it's springtime, but it's really
This isn't even
summer.
warm. This isn't even warm.
So Antifa's been caught training. Oh, Frank, I've told you that before. Antifa's got those John Brown groups.
Yeah,
They
that's
do.
right. Redneck Revolt.
People make fun of them, okay? And people on the right and other gun guys I've seen are some of the worst that makes fun of those people. And I keep telling you, yes, maybe a lot of us are better trained and better experienced and better armed, but they don't have to be armed and trained and experienced. All they have to be is lucky.
Or just
One lucky
all
shot.
they need is an address. All they need is an address.
An address, but even
You walk out to get your mail, and that's it.
in a larger conflict, one lucky shot is all it will take to ruin your day, the day of a friend, the day of a family, a loved one. One lucky shot. That's all it takes.
It doesn't need to be. You don't need to be a trained marksman to shoot somebody from a parked car while somebody's at their front, putting the key in the door.
Yep.
This is sort of like this was seen pretty commonly in Northern Ireland. You just ring the doorbell and somebody shoots you on your front door.
Frank Pliskin, yes, they do love to be underestimated. That's one of the worst things you can ever do is underestimate your enemy.
Absolutely.
My other Frank, enjoy the ACU. Well, I'm sorry you still got the wood stove going. I will trade you anytime now because it would be so much nicer to be able to get outside and do stuff if we didn't already have every blood-sucking creature known to man trying to drink us dry.
No, I don't mind.
Maybe I got sweeter blood than you.
The worst-
They eat me a lot.
But nature will kill you out in the boondocks in Florida and Georgia. But at least we know how to deal with it better than most people. So it,
Dude, but
it can become an advantage.
I don't like it though. Darn it.
I used to know some people that worked in federal prisons in Central Florida, and they said they never had to send out bloodhounds or tracking parties because after about a day, they'd all come whimpering back to the prison begging to be let back in because of the mosquitoes and no-see-ums and everything else, ticks, everything else out there.
Yep. That's where you got to learn to use the environment to your advantage.
That's right.
And let's see. Trying to read some more comments here. Let's see. Exactly, Robert. Man on a trigger is a man on a trigger. So, bunch of them flowing by here. Walt Browning. Hey, Matt, do you still keep up the trawler? Did you train your kids how to navigate? Question. Quasar, what's going on?
Yeah, I still have the boat, and it's a potential bug-out vehicle. As long as GPS is working, navigation is not really an issue. In the event that GPS goes out, other than crossing oceans, most navigation you can do with just a chart and a compass and a watch. Just looking for your landmarks and standard coastal navigation that's been around for hundreds of years. Crossing oceans, that becomes my sextant is a distant memory. But then even with a sextant, if there's no time tick, if you don't have a watch that's reliable, if there's no more radio giving you an hourly time signal, then navigation becomes a bigger problem. But look, Columbus got across the ocean, sextants weren't even invented yet. So,
Yeah.
and I always do like to remind people, because people that aren't boaters don't think in these terms, but a boat can be a very good option, and not just to like escape America and collapse, but let's say you had to get from New York to Texas. Well, you can do that on a boat. You sure can't do it driving down 95 if things go Mad Max.
Right.
Your RV on I-95 is not getting anywhere, but your floating RV, even a houseboat, can hide out in most of the South from Texas to Virginia. A houseboat can get around and hide pretty successfully.
All right, so let's see here. F-18. If you ordered it, I got the order in there. I will get to it as quick as I can. Understand?
Sure.
Yeah, understand. And I could do a whole long video on this. My lead times are still drawn out right now. I'm putting in some late hours at night trying to get stuff done, but I'm dealing with some supplier issues that are making this turn a lot wider, a lot faster than what I want it to, because it makes me want to choke people, but we won't get into that. But if you put the order in, I'll get it to you. It may take me a little bit of time, but I will get to it. Let's see. Mr. D wants to know how useful and effective are hideouts like lapel daggers and needles, or improvisations like locks? I'm assuming for defensive weapons, I would guess. I don't know.
Well, just being able to sneak something in. I mean, they do make some pretty good uh, ceramic knives. They actually have to put a piece of metal like molded into the ceramic knife so that you can't just waltz into places. But you know, a ceramic knife isn't very strong. But I mean, in terms of chopping and cutting hard things. But boy, they are sure sharp, and a creative person could hide them all over the place. In one of my novels, I just use the example. Almost all pants, because the last thing that they're going to take from you is your pants. And, you know, after pants, they're either going to kill you or give you a prison uniform. So if you've still got your pants, even if you're kidnapped or a prisoner, there's a good chance to hide handcuff keys, X-Acto blades, things of that nature inside of the hem of your pants around the waist. It's almost always a couple layers of fabric there. And right behind, for example, on blue jeans, the big metal buttons, you can hide even a piece of metal there that's not going to, you know, ping on a metal detector, because they're going to be expecting
Right.
the rivets to ping.
All right, so let's see. Quasar's got Kevin Ship just dropped a video with Greg Hunter. Says Trump going after the UN Small Arms Treaty was a bigger sign that troubles are ahead.
Definitely, I saw the video. It's very good. Highly recommended.
Quasar,
Cornered rats are very dangerous.
Quasar also said, "What's your thoughts on Trump directly challenging the UN at the NRA convention? Hidden meanings?" Question.
I loved it. I loved it. It was great. And he said, no unelected global bureaucrats are going to tell us about our gun laws. That was great. It tells me that some good Second Amendment people are around him, bucking them up.
I hope that that's all the case and legit, because Matt and I actually were just talking about this. The whole bump stock ban thing really tweaks my buttons, even though I have no interest in them. It still tweaks me. I'm hoping that Matt was right, and like it or not, you got to fight the war how you got to fight the war. That was a throwaway for him.
Right.
That was a given that
Right.
he could do and get away with, and put the fire out for a little while, and settle things down. I'm hoping that's the case.
Now, if President Kamala Harris says, following in the same path that Trump took with the bump stocks, I'm now going to outlaw AR-15s, then it's game on.
Yeah. Yeah. Straight up game on at that point. And people, like I said in the video the other day, don't think she won't do it. I've got my best friend works, part of his job is being in politics, working with, as an activist for specific causes. The problem with our side, and by our side I mean conservatives, right-wing, constitutionalists, freedom lovers, etc., the whole side of the spectrum where we're at, we don't listen to what these people are saying. We think they're just talking when they're not. They are telling us what they're going to do, then we blow it off, and then we act all just shocked and surprised when they do what they said they were going to do.
They would absolutely load us on boxcars to the gulag or worse if they could. And the reason they can't is the First and Second Amendment. Period.
Yeah, it's pay attention to what they're saying, people, and don't think that my phone out. I don't know if the rest of the video is or not, but don't think they won't do those things to us given the opportunity.
They would if they could, including false flag attacks to generate, a reason to do it.
Let's see. Trying to get
I
the.
love that scene in what's the movie? Jamie Lee Curtis and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, True Lies?
True Lies.
Yeah.
They're doing the nuclear bomb warning and the guy's battery low battery.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, comrade.
Let's see. For some reason, I lost comments on my phone here. Let me look at these.
We still going out?
Yeah, we're still going out because it's still working up here. Walt Browning, yes, communications is extremely important, and for purposes of OPSEC, I'm not going to get into too much of that, but yes, we take measures to be able to communicate with each other and other potential folks as well. Um, if you want to learn some good stuff on communications, I highly suggest going to my friend NC Scout's blog over at brushbeater.com and also on AmericanPartisan.org. NC Scout's got some great stuff up there on communications and radios and puts it in simple simple terms.
Yeah, nobody's better.
And it's easy open source stuff that you can get. Amazon is your friend, yada yada. Trying to see if I can get messages back up here so we can see them again. It's probably just my phone being stupid, but because they disappear on here and I don't know why. Stay up, darn you. Let's see. FF attacks, you mean like the sudden rash of hate crimes?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all.
Well, look, in 350 million people in this country, you've got a lot of borderline psychos that are just needing a little nudge to push them into pulling the trigger. And this guy in San Diego County, he's willing to go to a synagogue, tried to be like the New Zealand shooter, yet he was scared off by a security guard that shot his car, and then he called 911 on himself.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of really borderline nut jobs that it doesn't take much to nudge them into an action. It really doesn't.
No, those people, as we were discussing, they're already weaving on that line as it is. It's not going to take much just to send them straight across that line. Let's see. Quasar was saying, any thoughts on the UN saying that they are going to train the Mexican National Guard?
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I wish them luck.
They're not the brightest bunch, but again, it's still people with guns with money behind them, so you can't discount them completely, no matter how inept they may seem. You still got to pay attention to such threats because, again, they don't have to be good; they just have to be lucky.
Or just a lot of them, with no regard for life, theirs or anybody
Right.
else's.
Right.
You don't need to be an Einstein to pull a trigger.
Trying to. Let's see. Mexican government proven corrupt. Oh, Mexican government's as corrupt as ours is, if not more.
Forever.
They're 10 ways from Sunday corrupt.
Assume that they're all on the payroll of the cartels. I mean,
Oh,
to assume anything else is insane.
exactly. There should be no doubt that they're.
I highly recommend the Michael Douglas, Catherine Zeta-Jones movie called Traffic. About that, when they one cartel will burn another just as a diversion, when the real loads are being moved by the Mexican military. It's
Yeah.
how it is.
All right, so I got the phone back up. It's just wanting to be stupid. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the Florida Marquee channel? Have you ever watched his stuff?
No, I don't know.
I've seen some of his stuff, and I'm mixed. I think sometimes he's got some good stuff. Other times, I think he's got a little bit too much of a slant on it for his background. But I can get into that at a later date. As with anything, take the good stuff, just discard the rest. You know, you can find nuggets of information everywhere.
Sure, that's right.
Let's see. Quasar says he thinks the UN is making a move to ensure their invasion of immigrants. Is why he mentions it. They probably are. Rest assured, guys, there's somebody behind all that.
It's not
All
just
those
the UN,
immigrants.
that's for sure.
No, there's somebody behind it because it's too coordinated and too much money. You don't have that many people traveling that far, staying that fat, happy, and healthy with their iPhones working all the
There-
time.
And it's a push and a pull. I mean, the cartels get paid by the head to get people to the border. The Border Patrol has to release them, theoretically, because the judges say that you can't hold them more than so many days. So something like 1,400 a day are being released into the U.S., and many of them are picked up by Catholic and Lutheran charities in their buses. They get paid also by us. We're paying for our own invasion. So our tax dollars, this is under Obama, this all came about. Our taxpayers, our tax dollars go to these charity organizations, which then take the handoff from the cartels via our own Department of Homeland Security to distribute these people all over the country. And the goal is simple. The goal is California times 50. You know, California in our lifetimes was solid Republican, the richest, most envied state in the country. And look at what an S-hole it is now. And that is the Democrat plan, to turn every state into California.
Turn it into California and New York.
And all they need is Florida and or Texas, and it's game over politically.
So Kyle and Robert both comment about the same thing. You heard about that little deal down on the border with the Mexican military and our troops.
Yes.
So yes, Robert, we heard about that. Yes, Kyle. And technically speaking, that was an act of war. When your armed soldiers cross a international border and physically at gunpoint detain soldiers of the country that they've crossed into, that is an act of war.
Well, but there have
do
been,
anything about
but
it,
there have
but-
been many. There have been
Oh,
so
yeah.
many armed
That's
incursions.
just
miles
one
in.
that got
But-
publicized.
From my point of view, from my standpoint, there have been many invasions in history that were front run by supposed refugees. You know, the Visigoths that eventually sacked Rome entered Roman territory begging for refuge as refugees from the Huns. Once they got into Roman territory, they hadn't left their weapons behind, and they took over and sacked Rome. So the idea of invading a country using the human shield of women and children out front, it's not like this is a brand new tactic in human history. What it requires is to acknowledge it as such, an invasion tactic. In this case, the tactic is to demographically transform America into Guatemala North, with the Democrats knowing that 99% of these guys are going to vote Democrat because they're going to be promised more welfare. And that's been working real well. Why would they change it?
Yep. Let's see here. Michael, 308 AKs like the Saigon Viper. Overall, they're great guns. I don't really recommend them too much for the armed prepared citizen for serious use. Not that there's any problem with them functioning, just, excuse me, the magazines for them are harder and more expensive to get, as are the parts. If you're going to have an AK, first choice is going to be a 7.62 by 39 AK because it's the second most prevalent caliber and round and gun in the country. Mags and ammo and parts are easy to find and get. The second choice in AK would be a 5.45 one for the same reason. If I was going to get a 308, it would be something that I knew I could get parts for easy. There's plenty of good bolt action 308s, 308 ARs, even things like SCAR 17s,
FNFAL.
FNFAL. That I love FALs personally. That I used to have one that I love and dearly miss. So, if you're gonna get a 308, just make sure it's something you can get mags and ammo for, and parts. Level of body armor for home defense. I've done videos in the past on my thoughts on body armor. I think it's a valuable thing to have, but only after you've got other
Hard or soft?
hard. If I'm putting on body armor, it's going to be level 4 plates that'll stop rifle rounds. Because the only time I'm going to use it is in a static home defense situation. I'm not going to be out trying to run and gun with it. I'm not in a big, giant 60-man platoon with air cover that's moving like an armored turtle very slowly taking ground.
Driving to the fight in a Bradley.
No. So, I mean, you can get steel plates. They're viable if that's what you can afford. There's more expensive stuff out that's probably better. I would make sure I had other bases covered before I put a lot of money into body armor. Water, food, more ammo, etc. But not to say you shouldn't have it. It there's a role that it fits in the whole spectrum. I just don't go at it quite the same way as some other people do, from experience. Let's see. Let me scroll up through these comments here. They're commenting faster than I can put them up. We got 54 people watching. Let's see. Quasar, history is full of refugee revolutions, indeed. I think that's probably a pretty accurate
That's right.
statement.
And right in the Constitution, it says that the federal government's responsibility is to protect us from invasion, to protect the states from invasion. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no moral imperative to let so-called caravans of people just swamp your border. And even before any wall is built, our concertina wire factories should be working 3 shifts every day, and they can make, anybody that's been in the military knows how fast you can put a perimeter around something or a long line of it. You get 3 rolls of concertina wire, and you have soldiers behind it with guns and with pepper spray canister launchers. When a mob of people gets to within 100 feet of your border, there's no moral imperative that says we have to welcome you into our country and then hand you off to Catholic charities to go disappear. When there's a mob of people and they're still 100 yards inside of Mexico, loudspeaker, you get near this barbed wire, you're not going to touch it, we're going to pepper spray the crap out of you. I mean, that's how countries defend themselves. When a country doesn't have the moral gumption anymore to stop that, then it's like the end state in Jean Raspail's book, Camp of the Saints, where the French just don't have the guts to stop ships loaded with refugees from beaching themselves. At a certain point, a country has to decide, do we just abolish ourselves, commit mass suicide, go extinct, or do we have a country worth defending? In that case, thousands of migrants approaching the border should be treated no differently. I mean, you're not going to use, ball ammunition on them, but you're not going to let them touch the concertina wire. And there's no reason, 2 years after Trump's in office, that there isn't a pyramid of concertina wire everywhere there's no fence. We still have, 1,000 miles that's virtually unprotected. Maybe vehicle barrier you can just walk through. And we have enough troops. We have troops in 100 countries. What are they doing in Sudan or Somalia? Why are they there? Why aren't they on our border? You put troops.
We could be covering it.
You put troops every 100 feet along the border, watching, and when groups come up to the border, pepper spray the crap out of them. And then it becomes what happens. Then the dynamic flips. Mexico doesn't mind them passing through Mexico because
they don't want them to stay there, though.
Right, but if you hold them so that they're now forming refugee tent cities in northern Mexico, requiring the Mexican government to feed and care for them, suddenly the equation changes.
Yep.
But as long as we allow them to just pass through and distribute into the country, it's going to go on and get worse. And the Democrats are loving it because in 10 years, this country is going to be demographically flipped, and we are never going to win another election.
So I apologize, guys, if I'm missing some of y'all's comments. They're flying by, and we're trying to get to them as we can. So if I miss you, I'm not intentionally ignoring you.
That's John telling me to make my comments more brief.
No. Walt, yes, this is a conversation that I've had with many people, and Matt and I just had it a little bit ago. Not even just Florida, but the southeastern United States. Put on your body armor in the southeastern United States in July, and go walk about 5 miles through the woods. Not on little manicured trails, not at the range, but walk 5 miles through the woods in July in the southeast wearing body armor. My only thought there is when you do this, make sure you have a cell phone with good GPS on it so that when you call 911 to come get you from the heat stroke that you're experiencing before you pass out, they will know where to find you because you cannot physically carry enough water on your body to counteract the amount of sweating that will be taking place.
Well,
Take it for what it's worth.
what is the chest rig weigh? And how much is the water equivalent of that? I mean, that were carrying in Gatorade bottles and you pack instead.
Yeah.
You may or may not ever need the body armor to stop a rifle to your chest.
But you need to be able to move.
But without the water, you're dead.
And you've got to be able to move.
So you're either going to be carrying water or hard plates, not both. You're going to be carrying the equivalent amount of weight in water or in hard plates. Remember, the rifle that shoots you here will kill you just as dead. You don't have a mass unit. There's no Italian aid station. A rifle that shoots you here is going to kill you just as dead as the one that may be hitting you right here with your chest plate. The water, you're dead in the heat.
Yep. Let's see. Both borders and all ports are not securable. It's impossible.
Bullshit. Who said? Sorry.
I think
Borders are not defensible?
No, he said both borders and all
Borders are
ports,
extremely defensible.
if we want to.
It depends on what you're
That-
willing, if you put troops on the border and you've got surveillance, you can absolutely stop people.
We could do it if
Even
we
without
really wanted to.
Even without lethal munitions. You just start pumping in the pepper spray when they're 100 yards from the triple concertina. They're not going to get to the concertina.
Let's see. Oh yeah, and I get what you're saying. Something about even E-Verify doesn't catch fake documents and stolen Social Security numbers, that sort of thing. Yes, there are ways. Technically speaking, yes, you can't secure the borders in that way. There are ways to get in through border security, yes, but 95% of these illegals coming across don't have valid documents that are forged good enough to get through security. That takes more than what a bunch of people coming from Honduras can come up with.
They get into America. Here's what happens. Once they get into America, because the communist judges say that we're not allowed to hold them, then they're let loose. Catholic and Lutheran Charities picks them up. ACLU communist lawyers go down and say, "What's your name? Here's a substitute birth certificate in whatever name you want." So you could be an MS-13 guy with tats on the face, and they'll give you an ID saying George Washington with a fake birth certificate facsimile, working with the consulate of Guatemala, which also sends these communist lawyers into our country to provide a whole new document trail for these guys. It's suicidal. It's ridiculous. It could be stopped. And I'm telling you, if there is a civil war in this country, I don't like this fact, but it's going to turn racial very fast. Any civil war, any hot shooting civil war in this country is going to become an optical civil war, because you're not going to wait for somebody to be 20 feet from you if you can shoot them at 800 yards. And in that kind of an environment, one of the first litmus tests is going to be the question asked of anybody who doesn't look American, black, white, or whatever: where are you from? And if the guy can't answer in English, unaccented English, "I'm from New Jersey," it may not even matter at that point. But if you're somebody that just snuck in from Guatemala, you are not going to last long during a civil war in America.
Yeah, if it gets that, you'll see a lot of. If we ever were to have another civil war, it won't be a North versus South thing. There won't be two distinct sides. It will be so intermixed with so many different factions. It'll make the Balkans look like child's play because of so many different people and groups, and I mean, it'll come down to micro groups all around an individual city, much less spread out over
But
larger area.
But loose groups, small groups of illegal aliens aren't going to last very long.
No,
Because nobody's going to have, when everybody's hungry, really hungry and really scared, there's going to be no pity for so-called refugees that snuck into our country to parasite off of our welfare system. Zero mercy.
yeah,
That's
it'll
just
get
how it's going to be.
went at it for 71 minutes now.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow.
Time flies. Frank says what I was trying to say with the little Fort Sumters earlier. Exactly, Frank. There'll be. I think there's going to be all those little things take place. Again, not say there couldn't be one big Fort Sumter, but I think it's more likely there'll be a lot of little spot fires that.
An escalation of like Scalise shootings. Very likely.
Yeah, Robert, the feed's getting wonky. The powers that be probably got clued in that we're on here talking, and they got to start screwing with the service and the signal now. So
Time to put on their tinfoil hat protectors.
yeah, and I left it at
Oh,
home. So
geez, where is
our
that?
plastic works if I can do that.
There's your screenshot for the next 10 years.
Right, right. We ought to do that. Get some Reynolds wrap. And make,
No, because that'll be my screenshot for the rest of my
every,
life.
every picture I've ever seen anymore be you.
Wikipedia, yeah, that's right. Google
That
images.
would be great.
First image.
With communications, do you think ASL will come in handy? You just got your own satellite. Oh, Frank, I hope I've got my own satellite. I'd be disappointed if I didn't. I mean, I would hope that I've made them that angry that they want to pay that much attention to little old me. That means I'm doing something right. Frank Plissican, sign language. Yes. You know what? My wife and I actually have talked about that. I think sign language is probably one of the best things you can possibly learn. Not only can it allow you to communicate with deaf people, which is in everyday life could be a valuable thing, but just communicating with each other silently across the room. I mean, think about how many people don't know sign language. You could be standing in a room full of people in a big auditorium, and as long as you could see each other across the room, you could talk
Yeah,
completely silently.
Semaphore also, until the 70s, lifeguards on the East Coast used to do semaphore, which the guard towers would be like 200 yards apart. And they communicated like as fast as you can imagine with the little hand flags. And even in parties, they would do like finger semaphore, and they could communicate so fast you couldn't imagine. So it's like
Yeah.
learning Morse code. You can get really fast when
Yep.
when the two flags and two, that's a letter, that's a letter, that's a letter. You can do it so fast you can't imagine. It's
Yeah.
probably easier to learn than sign language. Maybe not as good for some things, but maybe easier to learn.
Yep. That's what Crowman was just saying. His wife teaches special ed and teaches ASL and they communicate in public areas. It's brilliant. I mean, you can literally do it without making a sound, which that's been something I've wanted to do for a long time.
And
is
nobody
to-
else knows what you're doing.
Yeah, most people won't, yeah, unless it's somebody else that happens to know sign language. And again, there's so few that do, it seems like. All right, probably not going to go on too much longer here, guys. Let's see. Billy Bird, I mentioned this earlier. Go to Brushbeater at WordPress.com or just search Google for Brushbeater blog. That's my good friend NC Scout. He does a lot of good communication stuff.
Practical,
Very,
realistic.
very practical. Also, go to AmericanPartisan.org. He's got a lot of his stuff up there. That's the best place to go for that. Let's see. FM or F18 or again, I think it depends on where you're at. A 308 AR could be a good addition to your 5.56 ones depending on location and terrain. I like 308. I've had them. I've shot them. I love it. In much of the southeastern United States, you just can't take advantage of its range, which was where it shined, is its downrange ballistics at further distances, because the terrain is just too thick, neighborhoods are too crowded. 50, 100-yard shots are the rule of the day, not 800-yard shots.
And having
So
having 3 times as much ammunition,
Right.
shots.
the weight and magazine capacity plays
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah, carrying 500 rounds on you compared to 180 rounds is probably going to be a bigger advantage. The range factor in the southeast won't matter, and so really you're talking about penetration, ability to, like, shoot through cars and cinder block walls. I'd rather have 500 rounds of 5.56 than 180 of 308. That's me.
Now, again, if you're out in some of the Midwestern states where you've got a lot more open areas, I mean, like, I know some guys out in the Midwest, their house sitting on their 4 acres of property, there's 300 yards of open flat terrain between the street and their house. Something like that, where you've got those big open distances, yeah, 308 makes a lot of sense. Ma Bell, reach out and touch someone.
If you have that much room, then you're going to more efficiently have a bolt-action hunting rifle
Right.
that can get out 1,000 yards.
Engage them further out. So what I'm saying is, location dependent, SOP dependent. What are you going to do with it? There's a lot of things to take advantage of whether or not a 308 is useful for you or not. Bottom line is, only you can make that decision.
But if I'm out in the woods where I might bump into bad people, I'd rather have 500 shots than 180.
Let's see. Wind Charmer, send me an email, sales@uwgearinc.com, and we can discuss what you're wanting there. Let's see. What do we do if Civil War breaks out in the urban areas? The urban areas are going to be a nightmare.
Don't be there.
Yeah, you don't be there, or make sure you've got a full neighborhood where you, like a subdivision, where everybody's on the same page. You've taken some kind of efforts to get them coordinated, and you can string up fencing and lock that place down. And you better have enough people to A, pull 24/7 security for the entire neighborhood, and B, do security patrols outside the neighborhood as a early warning option. It's going to take a lot of people, a lot of manpower, and a lot of resources.
You can't defend one house in a city.
It's going to suck. Gonna suck. Let's see, Robert Jimmy. What's your view on large dogs for part of one's preps?
Yeah, dogs are interesting. Obviously, in a high crime, disintegrating social order environment, a dog is great. Eventually, though, if you're thinking like Venezuela, everybody's starving. Having a dog means those people over there have so much food they're even feeding a dog. Where I live, everybody already ate their dog, so let's go there because they've still got food. So just hearing a dog barking will mean there's something worth attacking because they've obviously got plenty of food. They've still got living dogs. A living dog is proof that you've got surplus food.
Yep. Appalachian Mountains are probably one of the best places to be if things ever go bad, because you've got fairly good weather climate year round.
Water.
You got water, the ability to grow stuff, wildlife, and a lot of people don't like trying to maneuver through the woods and mountains
It's
in that
super
area.
It's super channelized. Every mile is another Thermopylae. So nobody's getting in short of ranger regiments without local cooperation.
And you're not taking a lot of vehicles off road like you can in some places.
You can scope out a small 1-lane bridge over a creek that's a quarter-mile away, find the right place, and nobody's crossing that bridge without permission. Nobody.
Let's see.
People have been surviving in hard times in Appalachia for a long time.
Yep.
Depressions, wars, Civil War.
There's a reason why during Prohibition so much went on in the Appalachians, because the feds didn't want to go in there to
Nope.
try to do anything. It was too dangerous. Too dangerous. Florida swamps. Nobody goes where I go. Gators, hogs, and snakes. This is true, but you got to remember, those gators, hogs, and snakes could do the same thing to you they do to everybody else.
But something that we learned from the Indian Wars in Florida, all across Florida there are these little dry islands called hummocks or hammocks, where you've got, the buildup of so it's not just a uniform swamp. To the outside world, it looks like a uniform swamp, but to people that know how to get in there with a canoe or a kayak, a kayak or a canoe are good because you can carry cargo in them, you can paddle them, and you can drag them, and eventually you can find your own little dry area, your dry half acre, which is like a perfect hideout. But bring your mosquito head nets.
Yeah.
Bring plenty of mosquito bars. You're gonna need them.
Yep. Let's see. I like spam. I like spam. Here in Jax, what are your thoughts on using waterways for travel during a bug out? Before he answers that, I like spam. Send an email to alphacharlie556@gmail.com and probably get into that a little more in detail. I'll let Matt give his thought. Using the waterways can be a good idea. You just got to remember how populated are the areas the waterways are going through. I think initially they'll make viable things. A week or so into something widespread, you probably want to taper that off. And then after that initial surge has died down, it'll probably go back to being viable. The bad thing about narrow waterways when you get inland is it's almost like being in a fatal funnel. It's not like ground where you can just go 360 degrees. You got water around you. You got to get out of the water and onto the land if you want to move anywhere other than where the water's going.
Well, my thought is that you're not going to be doing a lot of travel in say a houseboat.
Right.
It's going to be too risky, too easy to be picked off. But a houseboat, which you can get very cheap, would be an ideal hideout vessel because you can carry camouflage netting on the boat, pull it up underneath some oak trees, spread out the camouflage netting, and just wait till all the gunfire dies down in Jacksonville. Compared, for example, the same quantity of cargo in an RV isn't going anywhere because the first highway gridlock, your RV is going to be handed over to somebody with a lot more guns and a lot less morals. Whereas a houseboat could be pre-positioned in a marina that first sign of, instead of bugging out to a highway, you're bugging out deep up, far up a river, hiding under the trees and just waiting for the gunfire to die away.
Pat Riot, yes, I meant to address this earlier in a communications point. There's a lot more to communicating than just picking up radio and pushing the button and talking. There's a lot of knowledge and practice that goes in, and intelligence-wise, it requires a lot of listening and knowing how, when, and where to listen to. I have a little bit of a commo background, so I can say...
And remember, they all take electricity, so, think long terms in terms of batteries and recharging.
How about people stuck in the big cities, New York, Seattle? Those cities have rivers and waterways. My thoughts are you better know when it's time to use those waterways, use them quick, early, and get out because real quick they're going to become just as dangerous as roads or anything else.
Yeah.
Big cities are going to be nasty in America. I would probably rather be in a big city, quote unquote, in a third world country than in America. Because American cities are so just crammed with people.
You take
the sheer numbers
you
of
stop
people.
the food, electricity, and water in a city, and they're going out of control in days.
And not only are they going to go out of control, but in modern American cities, sanitation is going to be probably one of the biggest nightmares possible. Even in a semi-rural area, semi-urban area, you can go out in the backyard behind a tree and take a leak. But if you've got the big urban cities of America where everything is concrete and asphalt, and they've got no electricity, no running water, think about where 2-3 million people are going to go to the bathroom at and or wash their hands. People are nasty in good times. You take all that away, disease is going to be absolutely apocalyptic in big cities if it ever gets, well, I shouldn't say if it ever gets, turn off the water and the power, and it'll get that way really quick.
I recommend people, if you haven't, read my old article, the CW2 Cube, about Civil War II. It's called Mapping the Meta Terrain of Civil War II. Because there is some terrain, there's no guarantees that like this hill in Montana or this valley in the Appalachians is a guarantee of safety. There won't be. But there is some terrain that you can guarantee is going to be fatal. Guarantee. Unless, you're in a green zone, federal government protected, generators forever. But everybody else, the blue hives are going to just consume themselves. They're going to literally burn themselves down and eat themselves.
Mr. D, you ever heard of gravitation phones communication? It's a suppressed technology. I can't say that I have.
No.
That's news on me. Yes, the people in the Appalachian Mountains are not going to be very friendly to anybody else moving in on their turf, and do not expect a warm welcome. That is absolutely
That is
right.
true.
I know people in the Appalachians. I have friends up there. If I ever have to go up there after things have gone bad, rest assured I will be personally taking lots of IFF measures, even with my close friends, to make absolutely sure they know it's me, because no.
If you're not coming with attack helicopters, you're not coming.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Maybe if you've got a couple of Apaches, maybe you've got a chance of finding a place. But otherwise, if you're on the ground trying to get in there, it's not happening. Same goes in some other places, and it's not the height of the mountains, it's the twisty roads. Texas Hill Country is similar in that respect. Ozark Mountains, Missouri, Arkansas. The terrain just does not allow you to just meander in with your gang. It's not going to happen.
No. Is a jet ski a viable bug out vehicle for those next to the ocean? Well, sure, you could use a jet ski real quick and fast, hit waterways and get out the ocean, but then the question is, once you hit the ocean, what do you do?
Yeah, it's a very short range. It might get you from the city to your marina,
Yeah.
where your ocean boat is, but they have very short range.
Yeah, and you can't really carry much in the way of supplies or anything. Once you get to the ocean, you better have somewhere to go to.
It might get you from your Manhattan office to the marina, but that's
Yeah.
it.
Well, let's see. We're probably going to wrap this up in a minute. Let's see. All right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. I apologize if I missed some of y'all's comments. Didn't mean to do that. It just nature of the beast. And
Out
see
of
that?
coffee.
That is a problem that I need to go rectify. So,
Easily done.
sorry. Appreciate you guys joining us and popping in. We just thought we'd spend a little Sunday afternoon. We were going over some stuff here and thought we would,
Made a video.
yeah, did some videos. That'll be coming up later this week. Got to do all the fancy editing, which there's really not any. It's just I have a slow old computer that it takes a while for it to actually edit on. Yeah, appreciate you guys showing up. We're going to try to get more stuff done in the future together. I know you guys like getting Matt's input on stuff. I kind of take it for granted because I can talk to him all the time. Broken record is just meshing our schedules up between work and family and life and events and everything. We just
Yeah.
kind of both got a lot going on, and it's hard to, when we do find time to get together, we're usually busy doing personal stuff and related to the things that we talk about on here that we ain't got cameras around for. So it's kind of a,
Just a parting shot. There's an old saying, an old military saying, amateurs talk strategy and tactics, and professionals talk logistics. Well, in a sense, amateurs talk gun gear, and professionals talk water. It doesn't matter how many guns you have in your safe if your tap runs dry and you don't have a backup.
water first, lots of food second, because even all the food won't do you any good. You can get dehydrated eating food and not having any water to drink.
Anyway.
Funny. All right, guys, y'all take care. I'm going to close her down now. We'll do another one again soon.